Hi, I'm Pete Goff-Wood, and welcome to the latest installment of Recipes for Disaster. First off, thank you for all of the photos and suggestions you've sent in. I had no idea how hungry you were for recipes and ideas. In today's episode, we're going to tackle pork belly. Belly has become quite the sexy cut these days, but whatever recipe you use, it needs time. I kind of figured that being we're in the lockdown, time is one thing we've got, because low and slow is the best way to get great results out of this succulent cut. Now, we're not going to throw this on the fire. We're not going to do it in the oven. We're actually going to stew it in a pot. The recipe I'm about to show you is so simple, it's almost criminal. We literally are going to put the pork belly in our pot with a couple of aromatics, some liquid, put the lid on, and let it do its thing for 2 hours. But the recipe is that simple. But it is so delicious, so succulent, so tasty, you will not believe. And you'll be able to stretch this recipe for a couple of meals. Let's have a quick squiz at our ingredients. We've got some standard water here. I've got some Kikkoman soy. I like to use the low sodium, but you use whatever soy you've got. Just keep an eye on the seasoning at the end of the dish. You don't want it too salty. I'm going to add a little bit of sherry to this. Not a deal breaker. You could add a little bit of white wine. You could even add a little bit of red or white muscadel. We want something with a little bit of acidity and a little bit of richness. Then I've got some vegetables here. I'm just using carrots and onions. You could add leeks and celery to this, but I've used mine up already. Then I've got a whole bulb of garlic, and then I've got some nice chunky bits of fresh ginger. I've also some dried chilies. I've kept all of this very chunky because we're going to strain it out of the sauce, so don't cut it up too fine. The last of our aromatics is our star anise. Now, star anise gives a beautiful, rich, almost licoricey sort of flavor that makes this broth that we're making beautiful and flavorsome. It's not a deal breaker. You could substitute it for a bit of fennel seed, maybe some aniseed, or even some caraway seeds. But you don't have any of those. Don't sweat it. It's not a train smash. Then we've got obviously our pork belly, the hero. So you can see I've got the rind on, and I've just scored that. It makes it nice and easy to cook the actual flesh of the meat. And the rind itself is going to add a nice flavor and an element of gelatine to my dish. That said, if you've got some pork belly, either you buy it in the supermarket or you've got it in your freezer. If it doesn't have the rind on, don't sweat it. You can still make this dish. Likewise, if you've got it on the bone, just cut it up, but keep it on the bone. Last but not least, I have some green veg here. First, I've got some tender stem broccoli and some green beans. We'll discuss those later. Those are garnish that we finish the dish off with. Let's begin. So we're just going to add our pork belly to our pot.
Switch it on first.
And then literally throw our aromatics in. Obviously, chilies, make it hotter or leave them out if you don't fancy the heat, entirely up to you. In goes our star anise. Then we're just looking to cover this with water. There we go. Gonna add maybe a cup of sherry. And the same of soy. Go easy with the soy, because when this cooks down after a while, it could be salty. So you can always add more soy a little bit later. Now we want to bring this up to a simmer. We're going to put the lid on, and we're going to cook this low and slow, so no furious boiling, just a nice little bubble simmer. Our 2 hours are up, and look at that. Just slowly bubbling away. Let's turn that down. Let's get ourselves a glorious piece of pork out. Look at that. Now, what you want to do is you want to strain all your aromatics out of that broth, and then you can keep this. If you keep this overnight, you'll see the whole thing jellifies from the gelatine from the skin. Now, I'm going to take this skin off. You can leave it on. Some people, if you've never had pork belly before, don't like the rubberiness of the texture. I quite like it, but if you're a first timer, maybe try it without. There we go. A beautiful piece of pork belly. Now, before I put this in the bowl, what I've got here is my garnish. So some vegetables. I've used some tender stem broccoli and some green beans. You can use any veg you like. The noodles would be really nice with this. If you watched our pasta video, use the same recipe, just cut them thin and make your own egg noodles. But you could put stir fry into this, you could put whatever veg you fancy into this. Now we're just going to slice through this, and it's going to slice through like absolute butter. And we're just going to put this on top of our veg. There we go. This is so soft and so utterly delicious, it's unbelievable. Then we're just going to fill the bowl up with some nice heady broth. Now you'll notice that you've got more broth than you need for your portions of pork. And this is where I say the beauty of this recipe comes in that you can use the last piece of pork and probably get another 4 or 5 portions of a nice, rich soup out of that. Okay, we're just going to finish this off with some fresh coriander by way of garnish. You could also put some lovely bean sprouts on this. Again, some shredded chili, or even garnish it with spring onions. Any kind of green, soft herbs would go well. There we have it. Our Chinese-style pork belly with some fragrant broth and some lovely green vegetables. When I said this recipe was so simple, it's almost criminal, I wasn't kidding. We will endeavor to keep it this simple, this accessible, and this bloody delicious while you keep sending us ideas. This has been another installment of Recipes for Disaster. May the sauce be with you.